"You're not our father," my daughter snapped over breakfast. "We love Byron," my youngest added. "You're just extra," my wife said as I packed my bags. Then she dropped the final bomb: "I cheated on you the day we got married." And the WCI filed a lawsuit the next day. The trial was brutal. But a few days later, I woke up to 25 missed calls from my oldest daughter. And one message that stopped my heart. "Dad, call me back. Right now." My name is Jack Healy, and today I watched my wife with another man in my own bed. I wasn't supposed to be home yet. My business trip got cut short, and I thought I'd surprise her. I pulled into the driveway at around 3 p.m. and saw a strange black Audi parked like it owned the place. That should have been my first clue. Dakota always made guests park along the curb. I entered through the back door. Silence. Too quiet for a house with 2 kids and a wife who always played music when cleaning or cooking. I thought maybe they were out. But as I passed the stairs, I heard it. Low moans. The creaking of the bed. Her voice. Muffled, but unmistakably hers. I didn't storm up there. I didn't shout. I pulled out my phone and started recording. When I reached the doorway, they still hadn't noticed me. And I had a perfect view, my wife's bare back arched like a bow, her fingers gripping the headboard like she'd been training for this her entire life. That's what hurt the most. We'd been married 18 years. We had 2 daughters, Sheridan, 13, and Helena, 11. But I'd never seen her like this. Not with me. She was wild. She said things I didn't even know she knew. And the worst part? She looked happy. I stood there for minutes, filming, photographing, numb. It felt surreal, like I was watching some indie film about a man whose whole life cracked in two. She never noticed me. I didn't say a word. Didn't throw anything. Didn't pull the guy off her. I just turned and walked away. I drove to my office, running on instinct. Franny, my assistant of 15 years, looked up. She opened her mouth to say something, but I brushed past her like a ghost. Shut my door. Locked it. Sat at my desk and stared at the 2 baby photos I pulled from Dakota's nightstand drawer. She used to keep 4 pictures there. 1 family portrait. Our wedding photo. And 2 shots of the girls when they were little. Only the girls' photos remained. Ours, mine, had been shoved into the bottom drawer. Even while cheating, she'd left those baby pictures out. For him to see. What kind of twisted message was that? I dialed Andis. He answered like everything was fine. "Jackson, my man. What's up? I need your help." His tone changed instantly. "What happened?" "I came home early. She was with someone else. In our bed. I have photos. Video." Silence. "You want a divorce?" "No. I want more. I want to end her. I want her to remember this for the rest of her life." Andis let out a breath. "All right. I'll get my investigators on her. But you'll have to act normal. Can you do that?" "I'll do whatever it takes. And Jack, don't tell anyone." That night, I went home. Dakota was in the kitchen. That same wide, phony smile she uses for neighbors. "Jack, you're home early. Finished the day at the office," I said. She kissed my cheek, like she hadn't just spent the afternoon with another man. "Dinner's almost ready. Nothing fancy. Didn't expect you. I'm not hungry." I started upstairs. The girls ran to me halfway. "Daddy." Smiling. Hugging me. Like nothing had changed. Maybe for them. Nothing had. I held them tighter than usual. Upstairs, everything looked spotless. The bed was made. Sheets fresh. She'd cleaned the whole crime scene. Except the missing photos, still gone. She caught me staring at the empty space. "Oh honey, I broke the frames while dusting. Took them to get fixed." I said nothing. Changed clothes. That night we ate dinner in silence. Usually, meals with the girls are noisy, full of laughter. That night, even they felt the tension. Dakota kept glancing at me. Nervous. She could sense it, something was wrong. But she didn't know what. Not yet. After the girls went to bed, I poured myself a whiskey and sat in my office chair. She called it the man cave, said it was embarrassing. But it was the only room in the house that still felt like mine. I had to summon every ounce of control not to lose it. Not yet. Not before I dropped the hammer. For the next few days, I played my part. Woke up early. Went to work. Ate her dinners. Hugged my kids. Slept beside her. She grew clingier each day, saying I love you 20 times before lunch. Complimenting my ties. Asking about my mood. It wasn't guilt. It was fear. She knew something was off. Just didn't know what. Franny knew something too. She kept staring at those baby pictures like they were haunted. One afternoon, she knocked on my door and sat down uninvited. You okay, Jack? I'm fine. Are you sure? I said I'm fine. She stood. If you ever need to talk. I ignored her. But I saw her eyes drift to those photos again. Then Andis called. Jack, you need to come in. I walked into his office. He looked like a man swallowing glass. We got everything. Surveillance. Audio. Photos. Texts. She's not just cheating. She's been cheating since before the wedding. I froze. With who? Byron Dubois. High school boyfriend. He's been bragging about sleeping with her the morning of your wedding. What? She told him you get sloppy seconds. His words, not mine. The room spun. What else? You're not gonna like it. Try me. He didn't blink. Your daughters. There's a good chance they're not yours. That hit harder than everything else. We can't prove it without a test. But we have footage of all four, Dakota, Byron, and the girls, at a park picnic. The kids called him Dad. Hugged him. Played catch. Everything around me went still. Do they know? Andis nodded. They do. I wanted to scream. Break something. But I just sat there. Empty. So. What now? You want out? We file for annulment. Based on fraud. But we've been married 18 years. Doesn't matter. You just found out. You have 4 years to file. But if we go this route, no child support. No alimony. You cut her off. Fully. The next morning, David left early for work, or at least that's what he said. The truth is, every word that came out of his mouth now felt like a rehearsed lie. He gave me the usual kiss, muttered an automatic love you, and I smiled back. But something inside me had shifted. I waited until the front door closed before I started my own mission. While he was planning a future with Rebecca, I was gathering proof. Bank statements, call logs, screenshots from social media, where she had been liking his photos for months, way before the emotional affair supposedly began. I wasn't going to sit and wait for him to break me. I would be the one to draw the line. Quietly, without screaming. That was my power. I met with the lawyer that morning. She was calm, sharp, and efficient. After I told her everything, she looked at me with a kind of focused empathy I hadn't realized I needed. This won't be messy if we don't let it be, she said. You have no kids, a shared home, some savings. If he agrees, it'll be straightforward. I nodded. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clarity. I wanted to reclaim the years I had spent pouring love into a man who had already emptied himself out of our marriage. That night, when David walked in, he looked tired but oddly cheerful. Maybe Rebecca had sent him one of her flirty texts, or maybe he was just relieved that I hadn't confronted him sooner. Either way, I didn't ask. Instead, I handed him a glass of wine and sat across from him at the dinner table. We ate quietly. I studied him the way you study something you're about to let go of, not with anger, but with an almost academic detachment. His smile didn't reach his eyes anymore. Maybe it never did. I just hadn't noticed before. After dinner, I told him I needed to talk. His face tensed instantly. Is this about the other day? He asked. I nodded. I heard everything, David. Your conversation with your mother. Your plans with Rebecca. All of it. His mouth opened, then closed. He looked like a man who'd been hit but couldn't figure out where the blow had come from. I never meant for you to hear it that way, he started. I held up my hand. Don't try to twist it into something it wasn't. You said I was boring. Predictable. That you felt trapped. That you wanted someone exciting. That's not something you say about someone you love. He lowered his eyes. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did, I said. And then you kept lying. Day after day, kiss after kiss, pretending. I just didn't know how to end it, he whispered. You did know, I said. You just didn't want to be the bad guy. We sat in silence for a moment. I watched him shrink in front of me, like a man finally forced to see himself through someone else's eyes. I met with a lawyer today, I told him. The paperwork is being drawn up. You can move out whenever you're ready. He blinked. You already filed? I'm not waiting for you to grow a spine, I said. You want her? Go. He looked stunned, like he had expected begging or tears. Maybe a desperate plea for him to stay. But what he got was calm finality. And that's what unsettled him most. I'll start looking for a place, he mumbled. Good. And David, I added, next time you want out of a marriage, try being honest. You don't get to destroy someone and then act surprised when they stop letting you. That night, he slept in the guest room. I laid in our bed alone for the first time in 3 years, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Relief. The ache was still there, but under it was a flicker of something else. Freedom. David moved out 2 days later. No big scene. No final blowout. Just a few boxes, a weak apology, and the sound of his car driving off like he hadn't just walked out on a life I built around him. I stood by the window, arms crossed, watching him go. My hand didn't tremble. I didn't cry. I waited until I heard the silence settle in, the kind that stretches across a house like fog. And then I let it fill me, not with sadness, but with something stronger. Determination. I spent the next few days reclaiming my home. I boxed up the framed pictures of us and threw out the anniversary cards he only ever signed with his name and a lazy heart. I changed the sheets, donated the sweatshirt he always wore, and rearranged the furniture in the living room. Small things, symbolic things. But they mattered. Every drawer I cleaned, every photo I moved, felt like I was undoing the life we built, on my terms. Friends started texting, calling, checking in. At first, I ignored most of them. I didn't want to hear the awkward silence when I told them we were divorcing. I didn't want the pity in their voices or the half-hearted offers for coffee dates and distractions. But eventually, I responded to Sarah, my sister. She already knew everything. She showed up that Friday night with 2 bottles of wine and 0 expectations. No pep talk, no cliches. Just her, sitting cross-legged on my couch, letting me be angry, letting me say the ugly parts out loud. I wasn't boring, I told her. I was consistent. There's a difference. I know, she said quietly. He made it sound like I was this lifeless thing he had to come home to. Like I was furniture. Because he needed a reason to leave, she said. So he invented one. I blinked hard but didn't cry. I was tired of crying for someone who had already replaced me in his head before he'd even packed a bag. The next morning, I went through our old email threads, the shared calendar, the joint bank account. And there it was, her name hidden in little clues. A weekend transaction for lunch at a place I'd never been. A scheduled work trip to a city I knew held no conferences. Her name on the RSVP list for a gallery opening he said he attended alone. It wasn't just betrayal. It was strategy. He had been slowly extracting himself from our life while I held it up with both hands. I made copies of everything. My lawyer said it wouldn't win me anything significant in court, but it was proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy, that my instincts had been screaming the truth for months. And proof that I was done playing the fool. That afternoon, I went to a coffee shop I used to love before marriage routines took over. I ordered my favorite drink, pulled out a notebook, and wrote 1 sentence across the first page. She wasn't boring. She was just with the wrong man. I don't know what it was about that sentence, but it stuck. Later that night, David texted. Hey. Just wanted to check if you're okay. Hope we can talk soon. I stared at the screen. Then I turned it off. He chose to walk out. He doesn't get to walk back in. And for the first time in years, I didn't need to explain myself to anyone. Especially not to the man who never truly saw me. I didn't respond to David's message. There was nothing left to say. But that didn't stop him from trying. Over the next few days, he sent more texts. Some were casual, like nothing had happened. Just thinking about you. Hope you're eating. I forgot to grab my cufflinks, mind if I stop by this week? Others were heavier. I can't believe how fast this is all happening. Are you sure we can't talk this through? I didn't answer a single one. Because I knew the truth, he didn't miss me, he missed the version of me that made his life easy. The version that didn't ask too many questions, the one who believed every excuse, who smiled when he came home late, and took care of everything while he wandered off in search of excitement. He didn't want a partner. He wanted an audience. And I'm done applauding. On Friday, I returned to the office. My coworkers didn't know the full story, just that I had taken personal leave. But something about me must have shifted, because even my boss raised an eyebrow when she passed my desk. "You okay?" she asked, gently. I gave a small nod. "Getting there." She paused. "Well, when you're ready, I want to talk about that client lead position. We've had our eye on you." I blinked. The promotion. The one I had secretly dreamed about but always thought David would talk me out of. Too many hours, too much stress, not enough balance. Which really meant, not enough energy left for him. Now? There was no one holding me back. I smiled. "I'm ready." That night, Sarah came over again. She found me dancing around the kitchen, barefoot, cooking pasta to loud music. "Who are you right now?" She laughed. I shrugged. Someone who just remembered she loves her own company. We ate together, talked about travel plans, about maybe taking a weekend trip just for fun. No agendas. No guilt. Just two women reclaiming space in their own lives. Then, something happened. Around 10 p.m., I got a message from an unknown number. No name. Just a photo. Rebecca. In a restaurant I recognized, one David and I used to go to for anniversaries. She was wearing a red dress, leaning across the table, holding his hand. The caption read, "Finally, no more secrets, kiss mark emoji." No words. No explanation. Just a quiet, smug little dagger in the dark. I stared at the image for a long time, heart thudding, not from pain, but from something else. Pity. She thinks she won. She thinks she stole something valuable. But what she has is a man who lies, a man who cheats, a man who runs from boredom instead of facing himself. Let her have him. I blocked the number, deleted the photo, and went to bed with peace in my chest. Let David miss me in silence. Let him scroll through old photos and wonder when I stopped smiling like that. Let him replay the sound of my voice in the dark. Let him come home to someone else and realize he traded gold for glitter. Because I'm not the one who lost. He is. The divorce papers were signed on a quiet Tuesday morning. No drama. No final showdown. Just two people sitting across from each other, pens in hand, pretending they hadn't once shared dreams, a mortgage, and 1,000 small routines that made up a life. David didn't say much. He looked tired. Older. Like someone who was realizing too late that freedom doesn't feel like freedom when it's built on betrayal. He tried to meet my eyes a few times, but I kept them on the paper. I wasn't doing this for closure. I was doing it to reclaim everything I gave away in silence. After the appointment, I walked out of the building and let the sunlight hit my face like a clean slate. There were no tears. No second thoughts. Only relief, pure and sharp. I drove straight to my favorite cafe, the one I used to avoid because David didn't like the coffee, and ordered something he always said was too sweet. I sat by the window, watching people walk by, and realized how quiet my mind had become. No more wondering if he was lying. No more checking my phone for signs of affection that never came. No more begging a ghost of a man to come back to the marriage he abandoned long ago. A notification popped up on my phone. Instagram. I hadn't checked it in weeks. Curiosity got the best of me. David and Rebecca had gone public. Photos of them on a weekend getaway. Holding hands. Kissing under string lights. A caption that read, "Starting our forever." I stared at the screen and felt nothing. Because I knew something she didn't. David was good at beginnings. He loved the spark, the thrill, the illusion of something new. But he didn't know how to stay. He didn't know how to grow with someone. He didn't want a real life, he wanted a fantasy. And when that fantasy starts to feel like work, like commitment, he'd leave her too. Maybe not today. Maybe not even this year. But it would come. Because that's who he is. And now? That's not my problem anymore. That weekend, I packed a small suitcase and drove to a cabin a few hours away. No signal. No noise. Just trees, wind, and the sound of my own breath. I took long walks. Slept in. Read an entire book in one sitting. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to be anything for anyone. Not the good wife. Not the calm mediator. Not the woman trying to fix something alone. Just me. When I came back, I found a letter from David in the mailbox. Handwritten. I didn't open it. I didn't need to read regrets dressed up as apologies. He made his choices. And I made mine. Rebecca got the man. I got my peace. And trust me, I won. It's strange how quickly life adjusts to absence. The silence that once felt unbearable became my sanctuary. No footsteps in the hallway. No forced small talk over dinner. No fake smiles hiding disinterest. Just peace, and the quiet rediscovery of who I had been before I was somebody's wife. A week after the divorce was finalized, I received a text from an old college friend, Megan. She wrote, "Saw the news. I'm sorry. But also, I never liked him." I laughed. Not because it was cruel, but because it was honest. Megan invited me to a small dinner gathering that weekend. At first, I hesitated. Socializing felt foreign, like trying on a version of myself I hadn't worn in years. But something inside nudged me to go. Not to prove anything. Not to rebound. Just to remember who I was when no one expected me to shrink for their comfort. That night, I wore a deep green dress David once called too bold. I used to change before events to avoid his subtle disapproval. Not anymore. That night, I let my hair down, literally and emotionally, and walked into a room as myself. And it felt good. People laughed at my stories. Someone said, "You're so sharp, I forgot how funny you are." I hadn't forgotten. I had just tucked those parts of me away to make room for a man who didn't appreciate them. After the party, as I was leaving, Megan pulled me aside. "You seem lighter," she said. "I feel lighter," I replied. That same night, around midnight, I got another message. This time from David. "Hey. I know it's late. But I can't stop thinking about everything. I miss talking to you." I stared at the words on the screen. This wasn't love. It was regret disguised as nostalgia. He didn't miss me, he missed the version of his life where he didn't have to face consequences. I didn't reply. The next morning, Sarah called me, furious. Apparently, David had shown up at our parents' house, uninvited. My mother had answered the door, surprised but polite. He'd brought a bottle of wine and started reminiscing, as if trying to charm his way back into the version of my life he'd already abandoned. He said he just wanted to check in, Sarah told me. But Mom said he looked lost. Like a man realizing he bet on the wrong future. Maybe he had. But that wasn't my burden anymore. Let Rebecca hold his hand through that mess. Let her try to understand the cold silences, the sudden withdrawals, the way he avoids confrontation until the damage is already done. Let her be the one who shrinks slowly, quietly, to make him feel bigger. I've already done my time. He left looking for more. He found someone else. And now he wants to wander back? No. I'm not his home anymore. I don't live in the ruins he left behind. Because while he traded loyalty for excitement, I built a life no one could shake. Not even him. The next few weeks unfolded like soft waves, steady, healing, quiet. I was no longer waking up with dread or rehearsing conversations in my head. My mornings belonged to me now. I drank coffee without waiting for anyone's approval. I left dishes in the sink without guilt. I slept diagonally across the bed, taking up space for the first time in years. And I started writing again. Before David, I used to keep a journal, pages filled with thoughts, ideas, little dreams I never said out loud. After we married, the entries grew shorter. Until they stopped altogether. There wasn't room for my inner world when I spent all my energy holding his together. But now? The words came back like muscle memory. One afternoon, while organizing the guest room, I found a dusty box of my old sketchbooks. I sat on the floor flipping through them, recognizing the girl who once drew for hours without looking at the time. That night, I ordered art supplies. David used to say painting was a waste of time. You could be doing something productive, he'd mutter. He never understood that not everything beautiful needs to serve a purpose. I lit a candle. I played music. I painted until 2 in the morning, and when I finally stepped back, my hands were stained, my soul light, and the canvas looked like something alive. The next day, He called. I didn't answer. An hour later, a message came through. I know you don't want to hear this, but I made a mistake. Rebecca and I. It's not what I thought. She's amazing, but we're not aligned. I didn't realize how much you handled, how much you gave. I'm sorry. I didn't even blink. Of course she wasn't what he imagined. Because people like David fall in love with fantasy, not reality. And when that fantasy stops applauding, when the effort is no longer effortless, they panic. He thought I was boring because I was consistent, thoughtful, steady. What he called dull was actually the glue that held our life together. And now that he'd lost it, he finally noticed the cracks. But here's what he didn't expect: I didn't break. I became the flame. That weekend, I went hiking with a group from my new therapy circle. There was one moment, standing on the edge of a cliff overlooking a valley, where the wind hit my face and the sun broke through the clouds, and I felt whole. Not healed. Not yet. But alive. And that was enough. On the way back, one of the women asked what I was going to do next. Anything I want, I said. Because I'm not the abandoned wife in someone else's story anymore. I'm the woman who rose from the ashes. And this time, no one's going to dim my fire. The thing about healing no one tells you is that it's quiet. There's no big moment when the pain disappears. It just softens. Like the background noise fades, and you start to hear your own voice again. A month after David moved out, I stopped checking his social media. Not out of strength, but because I didn't need to anymore. Whatever he was doing with Rebecca, whether they were happy or crumbling, it had nothing to do with me. I no longer lived in that world. One evening, as I was leaving a pottery class, something I'd always wanted to try but never had time for, I saw him. Standing outside my car, hands in his pockets, shoulders hunched like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. Hey, he said, voice low. Do you have a minute? Part of me wanted to walk past him. But I didn't. Not because I owed him anything, but because I needed to see, face to face, that I was free. I've made mistakes, he started. I let something good rot because I didn't know what I had. I thought excitement meant love. I was wrong. I didn't speak. I let the silence do what my words couldn't. He kept going. Rebecca's not you. She's beautiful and spontaneous, but she doesn't. She doesn't see me the way you did. And I hate myself for not realizing what I lost until it was gone. There it was. The apology I used to cry for. Too late. Too rehearsed. Too convenient now that his fantasy had failed. I looked him in the eye and said, "You didn't lose me, David. You gave me away. Carefully. Deliberately. You walked me to the edge and let me fall while you ran toward someone else." He winced. I didn't mean for it to go like that. But it did go like that, I said. And I survived. I rebuilt without you. And I'm happier than I ever was begging for scraps of love you didn't want to give. He looked down at the pavement. I was hoping maybe, someday. No, I cut him off gently. There's no someday. Not for us. The wind picked up around us, sharp but freeing. I don't hate you, I added. But I don't need you. And that's the difference between who I was and who I am now. He nodded, eyes damp. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I know, I said. And I forgive you. But I'm not waiting for you anymore. I got in my car and drove off. No tears. No regrets. Just peace. Because closure doesn't come from the person who broke you. It comes the moment you realize you don't need their permission to move on. And that day, I moved on for good. I never expected freedom to feel like this. Not loud. Not dramatic. But steady, like the slow, sure rhythm of a heart finally beating for itself. It had been 2 months since I last saw David. 2 months since I looked him in the eye and told him I no longer needed his apology to be whole. Since then, I had done something radical, something quiet and powerful. I started living without explanation. My days were mine again. I woke up when I wanted, danced in the kitchen without glancing over my shoulder, made weekend plans on a whim. And most of all, I stopped narrating my life for someone else's approval. I took a solo trip upstate. A little town with a bookstore, a lake, and no cell signal. I didn't post a single photo. No need. The moments were mine. Not for proving anything. Just for being alive. The morning I returned, I opened my inbox and found a message from Rebecca. Yes, her. The subject line read, "I'm sorry." I opened it, more curious than angry. It was long. Emotional. Dramatic, really. She said she didn't know the full extent of what David had done. That he told her we were separated long before they got involved. That he painted me as cold, disinterested, barely present. She said she believed him. Wanted to believe him. Until she didn't. Apparently, things with them had already started to crack. He'd grown distant. Dismissive. Started working late. Sound familiar? She wrote, "I thought I was the exception. Turns out I was just the next version of you in his pattern." At the bottom, she said, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I'm walking away too." I closed the message and sat back. Not because I forgave her, but because I no longer needed to carry the weight of hating her. She didn't steal David from me. David was never really mine to begin with. He was always chasing the next thing. Always needing someone new to validate him. He was never looking for a partner, just a mirror to admire himself in. Let her go find her healing. I had already found mine. That evening, I hosted a small dinner at my place. Just Sarah, Megan, and a few others who'd quietly stood beside me while I fell apart and rebuilt. We cooked together. Laughed too hard. Drank wine until our cheeks were flushed. At one point, Sarah raised her glass and said, "To the woman who lost everything. And still found more." They all cheered. And I smiled, not because I agreed, but because I knew something even better. I didn't lose everything. I lost him. And somehow, that was the beginning of everything else. I used to believe that heartbreak ended with closure. With an apology. A revelation. Some final, cinematic moment that made all the pain worth it. But now I know better. Healing doesn't come with fireworks. It comes on a Tuesday morning, when you wake up and realize you didn't think about him once the day before. When your laughter is real again. When you look in the mirror and see someone you actually recognize, someone you like. It's been 4 months since David walked out of my life, chasing excitement and illusions. 4 months since I stopped trying to be the perfect wife for someone who couldn't even be a decent man. He still texts sometimes. Small things. Saw your favorite movie on TV tonight. Thought of you. Hope you're well. I don't reply. Not because I'm angry. Because there's nothing left to say. Recently, I got promoted at work, finally managing the kind of campaigns I used to dream about. I celebrated with my team, went home, and poured a glass of wine on my own. No one to impress. No one to update. Just me, and that quiet, powerful pride. The house feels different now. Warmer. Brighter. Not because I changed the furniture or the color of the walls, but because I'm no longer walking on eggshells. I'm no longer shrinking to fit into someone else's expectations. And the best part? I started painting again. Not just in the late hours of the night, but boldly, openly. I even signed up for a local art showcase. People came. People clapped. And afterward, someone asked where I found my inspiration. I smiled and said, I finally stopped apologizing for taking up space. They didn't need the full story. They didn't need to know the name of the man who left, or the woman who replaced me. Because none of that defines me now. I'm not the wife who got left. I'm not the woman he called boring. I'm not a cautionary tale. I'm the woman who refused to stay broken. The woman who took heartbreak and turned it into a beginning. The woman who let him go and never looked back. And if you're listening to this and wondering if you'll ever get there, let me say this. You will. Because sometimes losing someone isn't the end. It's the door you were too afraid to open. Until they closed it for you.